This story begins with the wrestler Terry Bollea, known as Hulk Hogan, filing a lawsuit against a website for the publication of an intimate video without his consent. Hogan was secretly filmed with the model Heather Clem during an intimate encounter, who was the wife of a close friend. We won't focus on that, it's just the context to understand how some events happened, since this story was full of money, sensationalism, and a lot of patience. Hulk Hogan was a professional wrestler who is part of the WWE Hall of Fame, reaching the peak of popularity during the 80s and 90s, so much that he participated in the movie Rocky III, starred in several other films, took part in countless wrestling events, and even created his own cultural phenomenon called Hulkamania, and as was tradition in the 80s, also recorded 3 albums. Later in the 2000s, he had a small resurgence thanks to the reality show Hogan's Knows Best, aired by VH1, that lasted 2 seasons.
The website that leaked the video was Gawker.com, basically a blog that specialized in exposing the lives of celebrities, politicians, and media personalities. It stood out for its provocative style. They would post anything, without filters, and had no qualms about getting their hands on confidential material and publishing things no one else dared to publish.
The video was published with the title, "Even for a minute, watching Hulk Hogan have in a canopy bed is not safe for work, but watch it anyway." Hogan requested the video to be removed, and he was ignored. He asked for a judge order, and it was denied. He finally got a second order, to which Gawker refused, appealing to the First Amendment. And when they were forced again, they removed the video but left a link to another website that hosted it. That's the kind of journalism we are talking about. The video was recorded at the home of Todd Clem, known as Bubba the Love Sponge, a radio host. In fact, it is said that it was recorded in his own room.
From what I researched, this whole triangle seems a bit shady, and I can't confirm or deny if any of this was staged or not. Heather and Todd divorced 4 years later. And remember that at that time, those intimate video leaks were easy headlines.
Gawker legal team, already used to this kind of scandals, went to court confident. The strategy in these cases is, since Hogan was not a megastar, to extend the trial as long as possible, to wear down the plaintiff, and then reach a minimal monetary settlement. But this time, something changed. When Hulk Hogan's legal team arrived with a folder of about 25,000 pages of legal documents, just the printing cost of the documents were about $2,000. Basically, this was a nuclear attack at core level. Gawker's lawyers were stunned to see how, in a matter of days, Hogan's legal team dismantled and destroyed every one of their claims, never leaving room to negotiate. It was clear they sought a solution directly issued by the court.
The person behind Hogan's defense was Charles J. Hodder, a name that I actually say with some fear, as he is known in the entertainment world for his aggressive litigation tactics. And by aggressive, I mean successful. So I won't even post pictures of his face.
All his cases involve big celebrities: Sandra Bullock, Cameron Diaz, Kate Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, George Clooney, among others, from website names, copyright, and privacy. He has offices in Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C., meaning his fees can be very, very high. And it was during the trial that someone asked the question, how is Hulk Hogan paying these lawyers' fees? And to get that answer, we must pause and go back in time and stop in 1998, locate ourselves in Silicon Valley, in the midst of the dot-com bubble burst. In this context of people becoming millionaires investing in tech companies, a German philosopher and lawyer turned investor decides to invest in one of the many available companies, specifically one promising to revolutionize money transfer. We're talking about an unknown PayPal. With this decision, he had unknowingly signed his first big economic success, since only 3 years later PayPal was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion. Thus begins an investment career that included being the first investor in Facebook, followed by SpaceX, Airbnb, Spotify, LinkedIn, among others. The successful part of this is that this investment happened before these companies became famous. For example, he obtained 10% of Facebook shares, which when sold, yielded him about $400 million in profits.
However, this is not a media-driven character. He always kept a low profile, a fan of chess and the game Dungeons and Dragons. But he is a strong figure in Silicon Valley, known as a member of the PayPal mafia, figuratively speaking, made up of the original founders, among whom Elon Musk is also included. This term PayPal mafia comes from this Fortune magazine cover, where they pose dressed as mobsters.
That was the life of this successful investor until December 19, 2007, when an article was published that pretended to praise his career as an investor, but actually began with the following title: Peter Thiel is totally people. This article revealed to the world the intimate preferences of our character, investor Peter Thiel. That headline was published by a young internet blog called Gawker.com. Remember, it was 2007. Having these preferences could end your career, and it was not accepted at all. So much that the article maliciously asked, and I quote, "What will happen if his friends knew Peter Thiel is g-?" Specifically, Gawker had a Silicon Valley gossip blog called Valley Wag, and it, for example, included revelations about a Google founder having a secret relationship, leaked an intimate video of another rockstar, cited fake news about Steve Jobs, among others. Peter tried to stop the publication but could not. Thus, this invasion of his privacy dealt him a severe blow. But, as the saying goes, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. And so 8 years, 2 months, and 19 days later, on March 9, 2016, the Hulk Hogan lawsuit against Gawker began. And then you can imagine who paid for Hulk Hogan's lawyers. While the trial was ongoing, more lawsuits began to arrive against Gawker for other cases. It was that coincidence that made them suspect that something was going on, but they didn't find out until it was too late, thanks to a report from the New York Times. The defense was based on 3 aspects. 1. Violation of privacy and lack of consent in journalistic procedures, this clearly for publishing the video. 2. Absence of legitimate journalistic interest. Since the disclosure was not intended to report news, it was only published for sensationalist purposes and to attract traffic. 3. Emotional and economic damages, the most important due to the impact of seeing that 7 million people saw him in private and that Hulk Hogan ended up being cut from WWE because of this, although unofficially there were other reasons.
The most important thing Gawker did during the trial was call Bubba, Heather's husband, to the stand, and he testified that Hogan knew he was being filmed and that the video was recorded in a mini studio he had at his house. The defense managed to show that Bubba had profited from the story by giving interviews. They found radio recordings where he even joked that it had been a publicity stunt. They even discovered that he was in an open relationship with his wife. As a result, his testimony was discredited.
Finally, on March 18, 2016, the verdict was given. The jury ruled in favor of Hogan, forcing Gawker to pay $1,400 million. Pause to imagine the face of Peter Thiel, the investor, upon reading those headlines. It has never been known how much he paid for the lawyers, but don't feel sorry. The poor Thiel is valued according to the Forbes magazine at $26 billion. This result forced Gawker to declare bankruptcy, having to reach a later agreement with Hogan for $31 million. Gawker was bought by Univision in 2016, although they never did anything with it. For now, only the web address survives, which was bought by an investor in Singapore, but the files and reports still belong to Univision. The case was relevant because it involved freedom of expression, internet censorship, money, and privacy. And the dilemma is that what was published was real, It certainly happened, but to what extent could the truth not be published? Also, whether that truth had or did not have the right to destroy the life and career of a person. The decision may seem easy if it's a celebrity, but what happens if that person is a politician or businessman who committed a fraud or a crime? Could it not be published? What if they have enough money or power? Could they shut down a media outlet?
At first, the case caught my attention just because of the whole revenge angle, and because I like Hulk Hogan as a character. But then I realized its significance, the dilemmas involved, and the question it raises, which are tough to answer depending on who you ask. That's how this video ends. I hope you enjoy the story. And as always, I appreciate your like, share, or subscribe on any of our social media platforms so we can keep growing. We are already at 1,800. And just for those who stuck around until the end, I know of another similar case that caught my eye. If there's enough interest, I'll add that video to the list. I'm Rash, and I'll see you in the next re.mental video.